Welcome back to another episode of Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike the Cranky Fan.
What's going on, Grump? It's one of my favorite times of the year with, all the different playoffs going on. I'm making a run down to Tampa on Thursday for Game 6 for the Lightning. Basketball is great right now, even though there's no Knicks. But there's always time to talk about our beloved New York Giants. So let's do that today.
Of course, we finally have a draft class. We knew everybody reported on that last week. We did an episode on that last week. A lot of those guys I hadn't really done work on. Unfortunately, I counted actually the players that I did film review on. It was 214, and with our 11 draft picks, we managed to draft like 5 guys I had never done any work on. I don't know how that happens, but that's what happened.
It never fails, right?
Yeah, I mean, like some of the guys, I whatever. But we have a brand new team now. Now we have draft class. We have confirmed undrafted free agents that were signed to the team or whatever. And we finally have what we were waiting for a while now, and that is the James Bradberry move. That hammer has finally dropped. And today, this is being recorded Monday night, James Bradberry was releasing the necessary cap savings for us to sign this draft class, get under the salary cap, and field a team. So he is now a free agent to sign anywhere he sees fit, which is probably the big holdup for as long as it's been.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. If the Giants really wanted to keep James Bradberry, they really, really wanted him, they could have maneuvered to keep him on this roster. I mean, they made other decisions. They decided they wanted to keep guys like Sterling Shepard. They decided they wanted to keep guys like Leonard Williams. They decided not to trade one of their high draft picks. There were other ways to maneuver around the cap to make it all work, and that's just a decision they made. And I think the fear that everybody has that, we might go to the Eagles or Washington or something. James Bradberry is good. He's not Deion Sanders. So let's relax a little bit about him. It'd be a shame if he does end up in the division somewhere, but they made the evaluation, they made the decision. They'd rather, find other ways to, guys to keep and guys to retain and guys to sign. So we'll just have to live with it. I mean, this is the situation we're in, and hopefully going forward, with an increased cap and better cap management, that won't be a problem going forward.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate, right? Like this was kind of the nuclear option of James Bradberry. I agree with what you said. I think that they wanted him to return. They knew the depth at the corner position and what it was. They also knew that even if they did get a corner in the draft that could start, that's still shaky ground. You know what I mean? Like, I get nervous. Sauce Gardner might have a whack first year. It's very possible. It happens all the time with corners, that it takes a year or two to acclimate. So they knew that, too, going into this. And, like you said, they chose to keep guys, restructure guys like Sterling Shepard, restructure guys like Blake Martinez. And they didn't, I'm not saying that they didn't do that with him, but if they valued him beyond just being a starting corner, they could have cut those guys, fixed those problems through the draft, and kept a starting corner here. But I think ultimately they knew that he was pretty much here on a one-year deal and kind of just doesn't fit Wink's system.
That's a massive point, that you're not cutting a guy. Like if you cut Leonard Williams, for example, you're losing him for 3 more years or something. For 1 year, again, we're talking about the rebuild is a multi-year program, how to do this. And it's not like James Bradberry is make or break for this team's going to make the playoffs this year or make a Super Bowl run. So they, must have made the calculation that, if we're rebuilding and we'll take the hit now while we can afford to take the hit. They'll, most likely will be targeting a cornerback in the draft next year as one of their high priorities, and they'll rebuild and they'll move from there. I just, when you're in this situation, you can't do everything, so you have to make certain decisions priorities, and offensive tackle, edge rush. Those are the main priorities in the draft, and what they need to build and what they need to increase depth and stuff. And just cornerback was just not what one of their main priorities for year one.
Well, not even necessarily, because, I mean, even if it was, things were just out of their control, right? I mean, by the time they were picking at 5, both Derek Stingley and Sauce Gardner were off the board. So now you're dropping to the third best corner at 5. You don't want to do that. And that's when you look at your situation and how bad you are all up and down the roster, and you see it as a good thing, because now you're not scrambling to reach for a need. You've got needs everywhere. Just pivot your position, and that's what they did.
But
and that meant
you could have started in the second round though too. I mean, they just didn't.
Yeah, but I mean, again, there's a huge drop off in talent there, and it comes down to picking guys that you like. If there's nobody there that you, I'm playing devil's advocate. If they even if they did value corner, it didn't fall their way. So it just becomes, that's where we're taking the hit this year. The end. It sucks, but we were gonna take the hit somewhere, because they didn't come in here with 11 draft picks in the first round to fix 11 holes. That's not how this worked. So. Right. At the end of the day, they knew they were going to take a hit somewhere, and Bradberry kind of, outside of being more of a zone corner than an attacking downhill press man corner, not that he can't play that, but that's not his strong suit. He ultimately, for $13 million, doesn't really fit the system. So it makes sense from that standpoint. And it sucks as a fan because, I think naturally every fan just wants to see their team win and be good and do well. Right. And it sucks to go into the season just being like, maybe don't worry about wins this year and worry about seeing improvement.
Then they haven't been listening to this show all year, because we've been preaching it all along that we don't really care about the record in this first year.
But even for me, I can't speak for you, but even for me, that's a tough pill to swallow. I have to keep reminding myself that.
It is. It's a tough. I mean, we don't want to be in this situation, but we are. And to me, it's just like, I'm not going to be sitting there just like, if I'm in the Meadowlands in a game in October and we're playing Washington, we're going to lose. I'm not going to be like, not going to look at you and go, Grump, well, it's year one and, well, whatever. I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, in the grand scheme of things, that
it's the smartest thing to do.
It's.
So, we're going to get into what this new team looks like now, and it wouldn't really make any sense to start here normally from an organizational standpoint, but we're going to start with it because it's what we're talking about, and that's the cornerback depth. We'll start there. We'll start in the secondary, so we'll just start on defense, and that's Wink Martindale's most important part of his defense, and that is a glaring problem. So Adoree Jackson is penciled in as our starter on one side, and you feel pretty good about that as far as him as a player. The issue is, I don't think the dude's really ever played 16 games, and it's now a 17-game season. So there's that concern.
Yeah, it's an issue.
The other issue is that opposite him is no real viable starter. I happen to think that maybe Rodarius Williams or Jaron Williams is going to have the inside track on this one. I know people are kind of saying Aaron Robinson, but I think that if you're taking not really a mulligan on this year, but if you're just kind of taking this year for what it is, it doesn't make sense to push Aaron Robinson out to the boundary if ultimately you feel he's best in the slot. And
position yourself for the future.
Yeah, position yourself for the best of the player and what this team's going to be. It would almost seem like you're confusing the shit out of this kid. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And I think he'll be in the competition, but I think ultimately they would rather Jaron Williams or Rodarius Williams kind of take that one.
Yeah, I think we need to stress development over short-term wins that may, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, we're going to win 5 games instead of 6 because you do that. I completely agree with you.
There's another guy in here, and that's third-round draft pick Cordell Flott. So the interesting thing here is that he kind of played all over the place at LSU in this last year, mainly due to injuries. And I think if they didn't have the terminal year that they had, he probably stays and replaces Derek Stingley on that roster. Everyone's kind of penciled him in as a slot corner, and I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm like a genius or that I really know what I'm talking about, but I don't see why that is. I don't know why. I think he's got the right length, speed, he's got the right skill set, the right mentality. I think everything about him screams he is a potential boundary corner here. He does have the quickness, I think, to play in the slot. I think also he has the versatility to move all over the place, kind of the way they use Logan Ryan in oh my God, what the hell is his name? Oh, Patrick Graham's system. I don't know where Cordell Flott is going to play, but I wouldn't rule out the boundary corner spot eventually. I know also he's only like 20 years old. He left early. He's very underweight. He's like under 180 pounds at 6 feet. That's way too light. But, you know, in 2 years, if he's if in 2 seasons, if he's the starting boundary corner, I really wouldn't be shocked. So that's kind of the corner position. I feel really shitty about it. I don't know how you feel.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can think of right now is that we're expecting to have a better pass rush and a better overall defense that might take some of the pressure off the back end, having to rely on them to make more plays than they need to. So I don't know how much of a help that really is going to be at the end of the day. I mean, you still have to make plays back there, but
well, I mean, they may have to be in man coverage, so they have to hold up long enough.
Yeah, I mean,
so
yeah, concerned, very concerned. But again, I think with our philosophy of, you know, this is going to take some time. I'm a little bit tempered in my, oh my God, it's going to be a disaster, you know, the end of the world type of thing. I think it's something that will be addressed in due time, but this year just have to deal with it.
Yeah, and I think it's also a numbers game. You know, I think it's just one of those things that you just have to throw a bunch of numbers at. So it was always going to take time whether they made it their top priority or not, you know. Let's stay in the secondary a little bit and talk a little bit about the safety position. Oh, I don't want to leave out Darnay Holmes, but he feels like he's going to have to really work his ass off to stay on this team. He feels very much like the afterthought of a prior regime that doesn't fit a system. I really like Darnay Holmes, but in man coverage, I just don't know, and he's certainly not a boundary guy. He didn't look so good on the boundary, even at UCLA, so I'm rooting for him to step up, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's just what he is, just the odd man out, you know. But moving over to safety, I don't really feel too much better about this one. Xavier McKinney certainly is something to feel very good about on the back end. But Julian Love is a functional backup that shouldn't be starting. Newly acquired draft pick Dane Belton, you know, to me, I had him pegged as a 4th, 5th round draft pick, which is kind of where he's drafted. It's not really starting corner material, but, you know, he does kind of fill that downhill role. I would have liked a guy like him to be drafted if we had, you know, Jabril Peppers on a 1-year deal or something where he could kind of sit and learn and get some sub-package experience. Beyond that, they went and signed 2 undrafted free agents in Yusuf Corker from Kentucky and Trenton Thompson from San Diego State. Yusuf Corker is somebody I actually did work on. Thank God. I had already done the work. Downhill box safety, his back pedal is garbage. I had him as a 7th rounder UDFA, so this is kind of where I had him pegged right, where he landed at least. I think that I wouldn't feel too happy if he was on the field a whole lot.
These all sound like just stopgap. These are just bodies right now. They're not even stopgap guys. They're bodies.
Well, I would say, Corker, I would say, is a body. Belton is a draft pick that I think you can develop that is an immediate depth guy, but shouldn't be starting right away. Love is another guy that I think is like, if he had to play for 5 straight games, it's okay, but, you know, I wouldn't want to start the year with him. That's not my option A. The kid from San Diego State, Trenton Thompson, I really like him. He's my kind of safety. I just don't know that he exists in the NFL anymore. He's like a middle of the field enforcer that really likes to take heads off of guys, and I don't know how that's going to translate, but I think the Giants may have gotten him more for the special teams value. He is a big special teams player. He's a good gunner. You know, we were talking just before we recorded this. You mentioned that might be kind of the key there, and he does have 2 block kicks there, and he returned a punt for a touchdown as well.
He's just a headhunter. Go out there and just knock the shit out of the guy.
Yeah. Sign is clear. I just, I don't know if that exists anymore. What do you have to be so precise with your hits to not get a penalty.
Mm-hmm. But something, if this team's going to be challenged offensively potentially, and maybe the edge will be on special teams, where if he can block a kick, or he can create havoc with knocking the hell out of somebody trying to catch a punt or something. Maybe
I also wonder if like his whole role on the defense might be just blitz. Just go forward, and like even if he doesn't get there, just create enough noise to screw things up.
This is the scheme that asks for that, so yeah, why not?
I would like to keep an eye on him and see how he does in the summer months here. I'd like to hear about how he's doing, because he really is like a straightforward, knock the shit out of you kind of guy, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I just don't know if it's gonna work. You mentioned... Oh, okay, so let's talk about safety here. How do you feel? I don't feel too much better about safety than I do corner. I feel a little better.
A little better because I feel comfortable with McKinney out there, being the
free safety kind of
the free safety, but everything else it's still, again, a massive work in progress and to be continued. I think let's, unfortunately, table that for next year as well.
Yeah.
There's going to be a big flashing light for next year for needs, and I know how you did your priority.
Secondary.
Secondary. And something, it might be the thing where I know you guys don't want to hear this, but if they decide that Daniel Jones is the guy they want to keep around, if it's either through franchising him or whatever, this secondary is going to be the number one target. Coming into the draft next year, whether it's
or free agency. I mean, they'll have a shitload of money.
That's true.
And I mean, like me personally, I kind of like buying corners, because corners are, once they're in the NFL, you kind of know what you got in the NFL.
It's more of a proven commodity when you're buying.
Yeah, that's just how I feel. I'm not a GM. All right, so moving forward to the off-ball linebacker spot here. Giants managed to retain Blake Martinez post ACL. He did have that ACL injury very early in the year. I think that was week 3. So, we're hoping that the return to form version of him is still starting quality. Beyond that, another Mr. Irrelevant, Tay Crowder, is still there. They went out and they added 2 guys in the draft, Micah McFadden from Indiana and Darian Beavers from Cincinnati. McFadden is somebody I actually don't mind. He was also somebody I did do work on. I had him pegged around this spot in the 5th round here. He's actually pretty good at getting after the quarterback, getting downhill. He's like a team captain. I kind of like McFadden here, but I would like to see him fight for and earn a starting spot there. Maybe Blake Martinez doesn't even really need to play. I don't know. Darian Beavers, on the other hand, is one of those guys that I think like 20 years ago might have been like a 3rd or 4th round draft pick. But this linebacker just doesn't exist anymore, where he is just a straight ahead run stopper. And like the term that everybody likes to use with him is a good one, is phone booth. He has like literally no lateral mobility whatsoever. He is a straightforward runner.
Right.
I honestly, I got to be honest, I don't know if he even makes the roster. He's a tackling machine. I like him, but I don't know if he exists in the NFL. There's a chance that he doesn't even make the roster. He's not that good. And then beyond that is just kind of Carter Coughlin for off-ball linebackers.
Boy, this show is getting very depressing right now.
Yeah, it does seem that the defense is kind of undergoing some stuff, though. But like I said, I mean, Beavers, maybe he gets a role in this team in depth, and they can do some work with him over time. They can have a role for him in Wink Martindale's straight-ahead kind of defense. McFadden, I have legitimate hope for. I think McFadden can earn a starting spot either next to Martinez or next to Tay Crowder. I'm not really sure how Martinez is going to shake out. He doesn't have a huge history of ACL injuries. It happened a long time ago at this point. We may be okay for a year, and then, we can kind of reload next to McFadden next year. I feel lukewarm about inside linebacker. I at least feel like there's enough bodies in the room that it's okay. And we don't really ever need more than like two of these guys in the field. One, two.
Yeah, I think lukewarm's a good, a good term I would use for this right now. Nothing is making me, dance around and say the problem is solved, but it's not, a massive problem that needs to be resolved immediately. So
yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
mm-hmm.
And also it feels like it's the kind of spot that like if you have one guy that's like a Pro Bowler there, it almost, not that it doesn't matter who the other guy is. It's just like if the other guy is a 5th round draft pick, you're probably all right,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, let's move to the edge spot. This is a position I feel a little bit better about. The Giants went out and got Kayvon Thibodeau. We've talked enough about him. Giants fans are
mm-hmm.
more than familiar with him. He's a legitimate pass rusher. He is the guy that every team kind of wants a guy like this on their team. And opposite him is Azeez Ojulari, who had a fantastic rookie year.
Well, that's the guy I really want to talk about, I think, is, what is his ultimate upside going to be now that he doesn't have to be the guy as the principal edge guy?
What's his? He could have double-digit sacks. I would say I kind of need to see Wink's defense in action before I can really say, but Azeez is really good at beating guys in one-on-one rep, and if Wink is throwing bodies at this defense and there's a legitimate guy opposite, a guy that teams might fear more than Ojulari on the other side of him, the more one-on-one reps he gets, the more likely he is going to get home and get a sack.
Yeah, I'm not so interested in or concerned about numbers. Like, is he going to have X amount of sacks or something? I'm just like, not being the central focus and being able to be, handle more one-on-ones and stuff.
Well, yeah. So then the number you really want to be striving for is the pressures. Mm-hmm. Because that means he's impacting a play whether he gets the sack or not. Mm-hmm. If somebody else gets it, or if it forces a throwaway, or it forces an incompletion, or an interception, or anything.
Right.
Those pressures, they impact plays.
How much more disruption can he provide? As a person?
I think the sky's the limit. The dude wins one-on-one reps, and the more he gets, so even in last year's defense, I think that with Thibodeau on the other side, we'd be seeing double-digit sacks out of Ojulari, much higher pressure rate, etc. Now we're introducing Kayvon, and we're also in this much more attacking, aggressive defense, prioritizing man coverage and creative blitzing and things like that. I can only imagine that just amplifies the opportunities for Ojulari to impact a play. So Kayvon doesn't really need to have giant sack numbers. I think, giant pressure numbers, getting the attention, getting the double teams, that helps the whole team.
The problem we saw too often when, big plays against the Giants where there was no disruption in timing. Quarterback drop back, 7-step through.
Yeah, pretty much.
You want to get off these guys off their cadence, and you want to cause some disruption, and that's what we're hopefully getting now.
Yeah, and don't forget too, they can move guys. These two can switch sides. So it's not every team that has two great tackles on their team like the New York Giants do. A lot of teams have a good left tackle and their right tackle is kind of shaky. So if you really wanted to, you could switch these guys, move them around, get different guys opportunities, screw everything up for the offense. So the possibilities are really endless, and it's a little bit immeasurable the difference it makes to add a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau into the defense here. Those two right there are a fantastic 1-2 punch. You add in guys like Quincy Roche, who had an impressive rookie year given where he was drafted. That's all effort from him. You add in guys like Ellerson Smith, who are really quick on the inside, and they have that extra length to bend around the outside. That's all potential right there. And beyond that, Jihad Ward they added. Cam Brown is another one that they have some athletic hopes for. Nico Lalos back there. O'Shane Ximines, I think, I'm surprised he's still here.
Is there anything with the contract, like after June 1st, that's any difference? Or?
Probably, maybe. I feel okay about this. I think that even if somebody goes down for a game, if Ojulari has a strained calf or something and Quincy Roche has to play there, we're still in a better spot than we were in last year.
Yeah, we're finally at the point of the program where we can start feeling good about some things. And, on paper, it looks a lot better. I mean, if we'll see what Kayvon can do right out. It might take a little bit of adjustment time to the speed of the NFL, or he might come in like gangbusters. But it's someone they're going to have to game plan for right away. And maybe that, we don't know what he's going to do immediately probably is to our advantage, because maybe they have to over game plan for a guy that's still getting his NFL
feet
legs.
Wet.
Yeah. So I'm feeling good with the potential that it's not just for 2022, but the longer term stability of the edge rushers is there.
I feel that way too. Yeah.
It's the first time we've talked on the defense about we're actually building something towards something, as opposed to stopgaps and, well, we'll deal with it next year.
I mean, it honestly feels like if they had the capability to add a mid-tier veteran free agent to this group, I would feel fantastic about it. I would say that there are plenty of guys to rotate. There's enough guys to fill in if someone gets hurt, that we have a good pass rush. I would actually use the word good, if just by adding a veteran mid-tier free agent. I think that by next year, if they're not going to do that with their money, that would be silly, but it feels like a simple solution to make this unit good, and that by adding maybe a little bit more than a mid-tier free agent, not necessarily a high-price one, but they'd be potentially great. It might be a strength of this team. Who knows? So I feel very good about this spot. I feel good about the spot. I would feel very good about its potential for the future.
Yeah. So far, it's the best I feel about this.
Anything we've talked about. On the defensive line, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, those are two staples for this team. Dexter Lawrence will be here next year. His fifth-year option was picked up. Raymond Johnson, still part of this group. They drafted DJ Davidson from Arizona State. Still guys like Ellis, Moa. Then there's 3 undrafted free agents that were brought in on the defensive line. Chris Hinton from Michigan, Truesdell and Valentine from Florida most recently, but those were both transfer portal guys, right?
Yeah, they came in last year. I want to say Valentino was from Auburn. I forget where the other one was from. And like we talked about with Kyrie Elam, before the draft, they were unfortunate byproducts of a very, very bad system. If you watch, for example, a film of the Florida LSU game, you see them running for 20,000 yards because of a poor scheme and an inability of that coaching staff to make any sort of adjustments at all. So they were kind of placeholders, 1-year placeholders for the defensive line as they're going through similar rebuilding issues that the Giants are. Let's put it this way. I'm not going to bounce my grandchild Gator on my knee and say, I remember when these two guys played on the defensive line in 2021. But, we'll get them into camp and we'll see what we could do, see if either of them stick.
Yeah, I think I know you well enough to know that if you're not excited about a Gator being a Giant, then I shouldn't be either.
Exactly. I didn't go to NFL.com and order my jerseys for these two guys.
Yeah, I mean, like, you wouldn't even text me something nice about them. You're just like, whatever.
Yeah. And again, to be fair,
they are. I mean, they're also nose tackles. Both of these guys. They're unspectacular by right.
Yeah, they're not flashy to begin with, but the run game, the run defense was really bad, and it showed in big moments. And again, but I'm also going to give the individual players a bit of a pass because I think they were not put in the best position to succeed too.
Yeah.
So,
I actually liked Chris Hinton from Michigan. I did work on him after the fact because other people had alerted me to him. So he didn't make the episode we did on the defensive line. But I actually really like him. I'm overstating here. I did like him. I liked him enough to draft him. I'd say that. I think if I had a late 5th round pick and somebody who really liked him in my ear, I could be talked into it then. But he's probably more of a 6th, 7th round draft pick anyway. But it's just one of those things where it feels like he's all raw athleticism. I don't really know his whole story, but he doesn't really just have like a lot of hand stuff going on there. He's just really quick. moving inside, so he can just kind of blow by guys and then make a huge tackle in the backfield. But other times he just tries to blow by them and just gets swallowed up because he can't get arms off of them. So, a developmental guy, take a chance on him, undrafted free agent. You can't teach speed. You can't teach quickness. So maybe there might be something there. I'm not going to hold my breath.
Let me ask you something. Talking about Leonard Williams, do you think they made the right decision of keeping Leonard Williams and letting Bradberry go? Or Leonard Williams, for everybody talks about the trade and then the contract, and now they overspent to keep him and everything. He's still pretty good. And he's still the anchor of this defensive line. So
I don't know if people dislike Leonard Williams or if they just dislike the means in which he was acquired, because it put the Giants out of leverage to be in contract negotiations. So they gave up a lot to acquire him, and then it was on such a short deal that they then had no leverage in the negotiations, and he's now on a huge contract. But to answer your question, do I think that the current regime made the right choice in prioritizing keeping him instead of keeping Bradberry? I would say probably, because despite whatever hoops they would have to jump through financially, because I don't know that stuff the best, I think Leonard Williams is the same caliber player as Bradberry. I think he's a year younger, but also he just fits the system. Mm-hmm. So it's right there. I think that.
Because I just see a lot of people, on Twitter, and not just fans, but like some media people also are like, they doubled down on Leonard Williams, and that's probably what cost him.
But this regime didn't double down on him. The prior regime did.
It's a lot of people are coming off the top rope any chance they get to go after Gettleman.
Yeah, and tis the season, right? It's the off season, the first off season of a new regime. Everything is, first order of business when you take over is blaming everything on the guy before you. And he's come in. He's a guy that we, as fans, represents a direction that we want to go in, so it's easy to like him. He hasn't tripped up a whole bunch, so it's easy to keep liking him. And it's easy to keep hating the guy before who screwed up a bunch of stuff and put us in a situation we are in.
Although I have to say something to you Giant fans out there, it's like, these guys are not going to tell the truth before the draft and after the draft.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started on this. I made a fucking joke this morning about how Joe Shane lied to us about when we would know about James Bradberry. I was joking, and I thought that was obvious. It's apparently not. Mm-hmm. I don't want to know what the GM knows. Literally ever. I don't want to know what the GM knows. I don't want to know. I want to be in the dark. I want this information to be hard for me to figure out. I don't want the beat writers to be right about things.
Right. I don't want access. Like, I know it's a big thing with the Knicks. It's like Leon Rose, their GM, never is made available to answer reporters' questions or anything. And the reporters, they get on his case for that because they can't do their job. They think they're more important than anything else. But I don't want to know. I completely agree with you.
I want the reporters to ask. I want them to try to find out, but I want them to be wrong a lot of the time. I want them to be guessing all of the time. I don't want them to have thousands of sources.
Before. It's like, the draft is gamesmanship, and free agency is gamesmanship, and all these different things.
And it worked. Let's applaud Joe Shane for it. Yeah. There was a whole bunch of smoke about Kayvon Thibodeau not being on the board. There was a whole bunch of smoke about the Giants being all in on Charles Cross. All of that was horse shit. And not for nothing, it almost kind of feels like there was smoke about Kadarius Toney being on the trade block.
Yeah. Let actions do the talking for you.
Yeah.
You don't need to know before it happens. Doesn't make any difference if you know before it happens. Let's see it happen and let's see, what the moves are. Because otherwise, you're going to hate everybody. You're going to hate every GM that comes in here. Anybody right now who has a bug up their ass about Joe Shane because of what he said, I guarantee you're never going to be happy with anything. So just get over it.
How do we feel about the defensive line? I feel pretty good about this. I have Leonard Williams for a couple of years. I have Dexter Lawrence for at least this year and next year. I like Raymond Johnson subbing in. I think we have a variety of bodies. DJ Davidson, by the way, we didn't talk about him. I don't really.
I think there's an inverted proportion that the closer you are to the ball being snapped, the more comfortable I feel about this defense.
Yeah, that's actually true. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very comfortable with Leonard Williams. I feel probably more comfortable right now than anybody else on this roster. I feel great about the edge. Linebackers, all right. Secondary,
Yeah.
worries about the safeties, and you go further out to corners. That's the biggest concern.
Yeah, by far for me.
Yeah.
Briefly, let's flip through the offense, and we don't really need to go. There's no big significant changes to quarterback or running back. Jashawn Corbin, I did work on him, by the way, running back from Florida State. Another guy that I had pegged in like the 6th round. He runs a little too upright. He's got some. Best thing about Corbin, he's a steady blocker. I'll say that. He's a good pass blocker, and that's why I would have drafted him. Otherwise, very, very average, and runs a little tall. So I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't make the team. I wouldn't be shocked if he's a practice squad guy. But the ability to block out of college is a huge plus. So
I'm going to go with the assumption that Saquon Barkley is healthy. Yeah. So until I'm proven otherwise, and I think with the improvements to the offensive line, and I'm going to say I'm comfortable with the running back room for right now.
Yeah, same.
That could change with the next injury, but right now,
and same thing with quarterback. I'm comfortable with Jones being the starter with Tyrod Taylor backing him up. I feel good there with Tyrod Taylor on a 2-year deal.
It's shit or get off the pot right now for Daniel Jones, and I think he's shown flashes that he's not completely incompetent. Can he be consistent?
Sure can shit.
Yeah.
One addition to the running back room that we didn't mention is fullback / H-back Jeremiah Hall. I actually was a big fan of his. Do think that there is there's a spot for him on this roster, in my opinion, as that H-back with the occasional fullback potential. Dude catches passes pretty well, pretty good blocker. That's somebody I think we should keep an eye on throughout camp.
Okay.
Wide receiver. This doesn't really warrant a huge discussion, I don't think. But let's go through the top guys, and then the depth. I mean, just generally speaking, I feel comfortable with the depth. Wide receiver is one of those positions where, a lot of those guys that are bodies, they don't really end up playing, and we have this giant conversation about the 6th wide receiver, at the same time every year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
a tradition like no other.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going off the top, 7 guys here. Galladay, Shepard, Toney, Slayton. That's 4. Wan'Dale Robinson is 5. C.J. Board 6. Colin Johnson 7, right? I mean, I feel like that's probably the top 7 right now. There's some other guys, Alex Bachman, David Sills, whatever. Galladay on the outside as your number 1. Kadarius Toney is a weapon in himself. Wan'Dale Robinson is the same thing. I mean, he's not as much as an outside wide receiver as Kadarius Toney is. He's not as much as a route runner as Kadarius Toney is. He also he spent some time as a running back. So that I think kind of stunted his route running development, because he's not like he's a bad route runner. He's just an unpolished route runner. But, put the ball in Robinson's hands and he's going to be magical anyway. And you still have the steady presence of Sterling Shepard in there in whatever capacity. Darius Slayton, if he stays on the team,
I mean, we get Sterling Shepard is passed, but we got to see how he comes back from injury.
Mm-hmm. I think Sterling Shepard to me is the guy that he may not play a whole lot. He might be the veteran voice kind of captain sort of guy in the wide receiver room that they were able to get on a cheap deal based on his life situation and just his career situation, being injured at that time. Might have just been in the best cards for him to stay here for cheap for a year, and the Giants felt that even if he doesn't play, he provides something valuable in the locker room at a certain position group. That's kind of how I feel about Shepard. I don't know if any of that's true.
It doesn't make me feel a whole heck of a lot better.
No, I didn't expect it to. But I mean, as far as the starters go, Galladay, Toney, Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about that. They all do something a little bit different, and yet there's some crossover there among them a little bit.
Yeah, I've never been a Darius Slayton guy ever,
That's true.
and
Checks out.
what's that?
Checks out.
Yeah, I mean, if he's still on this roster and he's still a contributor, that tells me that this room isn't deep enough yet.
True. Okay.
It's a lot of unknowns, and I don't know. I mean, we see the potential in a guy like Kadarius Toney. I mean, he had that game. He had 180 yards receiving and just looked like, the best player on the field. But
he literally looked like 22 people couldn't tackle him.
Exactly. So, but again, can we see something like that for, 17 games, or even just like enough of it where, he's a difference maker in a majority of games? I don't know yet. Who knows?
Yeah, that's fair. And I feel okay about this room in that I think that there's enough talent at the top to feel okay about it. That there'll always be two talented guys available, which I didn't really feel last year. I didn't feel like there were always two starting caliber wide receivers available at any given time, because there often weren't. In that much, I feel okay. In terms of the overall health of them, I don't feel great. Galladay, Toney, Slayton, Shepard, all of them have checkered injury pasts. And Wan'Dale Robinson's like 5'8" and like 170 pounds. So it's not like he's some wrecking ball out there. This is one of those, like, they're probably okay. Over the course of the next couple of years, they can add to this a little at a time and make it a strength. And it's also one of those things where, you can get like a quality veteran wide receiver for not that much money. You know what I mean? So I think there'll be some free agent additions in the coming years and stuff like that too to help.
Oh,
this
for
team
sure.
out. Yeah,
absolutely.
What
is your long-term thought of Kenny Galladay on this team?
I don't know. It's gonna depend. We have a bad recency taste in our mouths. His time with Detroit, he's kind of a big play machine. But they were a downfield attacking offense. I don't really know what the hell we were last year. I don't know what that was. So it depends on what Brian Daboll is able to do with him. You know what I mean? If we see the production from him and the fact that Daniel Jones and him have some connection, or that Daboll just sees something where he can scheme something that teams can't defend, then they'll keep him on the contract that they, maybe they can work out some kind of restructure at some point where they can't afford him in the future. But, it all depends. If he doesn't fit into what Daboll's trying to do, if he has another dud year, if he's hurt, I feel not that good. I think his future with this team is entirely in his and Brian Daboll's hands. Does that feel like an accurate assessment?
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough for a guy like him to be tied so much to the quarterback, but that's such his life.
Yeah, it is the story of most wide receivers, right?
I mean, they're not trying to prove themselves. They're trying to prove it with someone who's trying to prove it as well. It makes it
yeah.
It's tough when your situation is not completely in your control.
Moving over to tight ends, this was a spot of emphasis, right? Ricky Seals-Jones, we've discussed him at length, probably shouldn't be a starter. I would say he's probably still the starter. More of a receiver than anything. He actually is a converted wide receiver to tight end. The Giants went out and got Daniel Bellinger, and they drafted him right about where I had him pegged. He's a good blocker. He's a decent receiver. He's not much of a route runner. They got themselves a Y tight end that can move pretty well and can block pretty well. And that's going to help out a lot of things. And I think he's really the number 2 tight end on this team. I think that's a good number 2 tight end to have. But it still doesn't solve the problem of the fact that Ricky Seals-Jones is the number 1. And that sort of sucks. Behind that, they have Jordan Atkins, who's a whatever free agent. They got an undrafted free agent, Austin Allen from Nebraska. Contested catch kind of guy, really shitty route runner. A decent blocker, I guess. I wouldn't have my hopes up too high. I did like him, but he ain't going to be coming in here, and he's like a developmental guy. I'll say it like that. He's a developmental guy. I feel lukewarm about tight ends. I feel at least like we have the blocking tight end thing sort of figured out. You feel that way? I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, and I think right now that might be more important than worrying about a prolific catch, pass receiving tight end. I think
Which is kind of what we've been saying for years now, right?
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think this offensive line we're going to talk about it in a minute, but it's still under construction. There's a lot of potential. We've upgraded, made some, but we have to see these guys in action. I think they're still going to need a lot of help, and I think these guys, if they're good blockers, that's just going to assist even more. So I think again for right now where we are in this rebuild, I think it's important to fortify it with guys who can block. It's more important to me right now than if they can catch.
I agree, and moving into that offensive line, which is kind of like our last stop here this episode. Most important part, let's just stick with tackles here. Andrew Thomas on the left side, I feel great about him. He was the guy I wanted that year. He was the guy we got. He looks like one of the best guys we've had at left tackle in a long time. Dave Deal certainly was a get the job done kind of guy. Will Beatty was on and off at best. This is the nicest way to put it. When was the last time we really had a shutdown left tackle? It was really just Dave Deal, wasn't it?
I guess so, yeah. It's been a while.
We skipped right over Eric Flowers for good reason. So, yeah, right. But then they go out and they draft Evan Neal, who legitimately a team could draft him as a left tackle and hope that he does that.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Is there any chance that he becomes a left tackle and they move Andrew Thomas to right tackle?
Yeah, there's a chance. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Andrew Thomas hasn't played right tackle in like 4 years now. I think he already is, in my opinion, a top 10 left tackle in the league. I wouldn't say top 5, but he's if he's playing 16, 17 games, he's a top 10 left tackle, I think, if you factor in age, right? Evan Neal, I would say, is already suited for the right side more than the left side. He had a pretty good job, playing the left side for Alabama. I think I'll say this. If Andrew Thomas gets hurt, I think it makes more sense to move Evan Neal to the left side and have Gano play right tackle. But even I said that like it wasn't obvious, right? Like Matt Gano sucks. But even if the drop-off wasn't massive like that, I still think that that's the best move, is to move, like, even next year if we have a better right tackle veteran, on the roster, I still think the best move would be to move Neal to the left side and then elevate that backup guy. I feel great about the tackles. I think this is the best starting. I mean, let's really think about it. This is the best set of starting tackles we've had since the glory days of the Giants' offensive line, 05 through 09, right?
I can make a case it's the best pair of tackles in the division.
I would say who would they would be competing more with Philly than Dallas, right? I mean, Tyron Smith. Not that Tyron Smith isn't good. He was for the longest time the best left tackle in the division by far. But with the injuries he's had over the past 3-4 years now, he might retire mid-season next year, and it wouldn't surprise me. So I think you'd be competing with Philly there, with Lane Johnson at right tackle and that dude at Jordan Mailata, I think is his name, at left tackle. That's a pretty solid group, but I think that really is it. It's Philly and us. When was the last time we had anything offensive line related as good as Philly? 05 through 09?
Yeah, we're talking 15 years ago.
Shit.
A long time ago.
Yeah, that's that. I feel great about the tackles. And then when you add in Daniel Bellinger as that tight end who's going to be in line next to either Andrew Thomas or Evan Neal, I feel fantastic. It is the best I've felt in a long time. Daniel Bellinger is no, like, Rob Gronkowski, you know what I mean? In the inside, you have Glowinski is the big one there that they signed to a 3-year deal playing at right guard. They went out and they drafted Josh Azudu to presumably play left guard. They also drafted Marcus McKeithen from UNC, a right guard, but I'm a little bit more lukewarm on him. They signed John Feliciano to play center. They said that right off the bat. And then they kind of brought in just a bunch of scrubs to compete with the scrubs that we had left over, right? Gates, Wes Martin, Shane Lemieux, Ben Bredesen. They came and they brought in Jamil Douglas and Max Garcia. And, then they drafted the two other guys. And that's kind of going to be the competition there. I wouldn't get my hopes up too much for Marcus McKeithen. Definite right guard, definite big body guy, gonna push some people out of the way, but he's a big, slow moving guy. I just don't know. He's gonna have too much trouble with the faster guys on the inside. But Josh Azudu, I actually feel really good about. I had not done work on him prior to the draft, so this was my first adventure with Josh Azudu, and I felt really good about him. I mean, the dude has played like 4 positions at UNC, and he switches positions sometimes within the same drive. They'll be driving and they'll just call a play and he'll have to play left tackle, and that's okay. No drop off. Dude is really athletic, gets to the second level really well. He's more than anything, when we talk about that versatility, that shows me that he is so smart. Mm-hmm. I mean, you in the middle of drive, that means you have to know at the drop of a hat exactly what the left tackle does on that play, right?
It's the position group that's had the biggest improvement in talent, ability, and everything, I think, is the offensive line.
This offseason?
Yeah.
And for the emergency work that they did to, just kind of get people in here with just the draft picks that they have and the money that they have to use, they did a pretty good job of getting bodies in there. And I think it's addressing this kind of shit that really ultimately was their priority over James Bradberry. I know the big contracts are the big targets, but they spent decent chunks of money getting Glowinski in here, getting Feliciano, getting Garcia. I mean, yes, it's not a ton of money getting Garcia or Jamil Douglas, but they didn't have to do that.
It was targeted spending. It was surgically spent.
Glowinski was their big spend. They didn't necessarily need to do that if they didn't want to. I would say that's more the priority than saying edge was over corner. Mm-hmm. Because if edge was a priority, they would have brought in more than Jihad Ward.
Right.
They could have thrown bodies at that position. They didn't. I think that was a draft pivot. Mm-hmm. I honestly feel lukewarm about the interior of the offensive line. Is that bold to feel that way?
Maybe a little bold. I mean, again,
I think I feel the most nervous about center.
Anything is better, but the question becomes: is it adequate?
Yeah.
And then the next step is it good? I mean, have we elevated to adequate, and is adequate good enough for right now?
There's so many new pieces all learning a new playbook. It's hard to tell. This could be in theory good, but just because it's a new year, it might take time. They might have time to give. Who knows? But I at least feel good that they prioritize enough that there is a legitimate competition for 3 positions here. Not even. Well, I would say there's a legitimate competition for 2 positions on the offensive line. I think Glowinski almost, for the money they paid him, it would be a shame if he wasn't the starting right guard. They think there's no way Neal and Thomas are not starters. So right. you have all these guys that I just mentioned.
Well, he's not going to get the job just because of the money they spent on him. I mean, if there's still competition.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously. But, okay, so then if somebody beats him out for the starting right guard position, then we're in even better shape than I thought because they have this guy now backing somebody up for all this money.
Well, it's high-quality depth is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So I would feel even better. Which is something
we haven't had in this offensive line in as long as we've haven't had dominating guys on the line.
Oh, we haven't even had good starters. Depth.
That's Christ. What I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just having dominating guys who start.
I did do work in the draft process on Josh Rivas, interior offensive lineman from Kansas State. I don't even know if that's how you say his name. If it's Rivas or Rivas. Big dude, 6'6", 335. I didn't feel that great about him in pass protection. And that's why I had him as somewhere between 5th and 7th round. The pass protection is kind of trash. But in the run game, he's a mauler, so it was worth it to do an undrafted free agent kind of swing for the fences there. I feel okay about why not, right? Like I said, I had him somewhere between the 5th and 7th round. So I saw something in there, but even if he makes the team again, his pass blocking was so shitty. I really wouldn't be surprised if he was just depth. That was developmental. Who knows over the long period of time. NFL coaching, Kansas State isn't really. I know there's the Cody Whitehairs of the world that came out of Kansas State, but they're not really pumping out NFL talent anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel I typically I typically do after the draft. I feel better about my team than I did going into it.
Oh, I definitely think it's hard not to. I mean, if we
right?
felt worse after the draft, then God.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, the question becomes: do you feel better after,
spring training or
the
whatever
cuts
the
that have
fuck?
to be made too? I mean, do we feel better? I mean, we have to
yeah.
the Bradberry, losing him as part of the total equation. Do you feel better?
Oh well, yeah, but I think I was just so conditioned to expect that I already felt that going into the draft. So the answer to your question, no, but ultimately I was already prepared for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the cornerstone pieces were got this year. I mean, we had mentioned this before that, if you're worrying so much about getting yourself in position to draft a quarterback next year, you've wasted a year of getting cornerstone pieces to build on. And, we are now set at tackle. We are now set at edge. Those are important things that are very, very expensive to get on the open market.
Yeah.
And we have them under, rookie contracts for, 5 years. So
yeah.
I mean,
I feel pretty good about that too.
Yeah.
The fact that they're here for so long.
and I don't have the timeline of playoffs or bust this year. So I think major strides have been made. I think I need to see as much, if not more, pieces in next year's draft and free agency next year. This is a good foundation, but there's still more work to be done. And this year is about, the Brian Dable coaching philosophy and installing what he wants to do on offense, and Wink Martindale's defense and establishing that culture on defense. And, well, to me, success in the season is going to be, am I going to see a team in December that looks a heck of a lot better than it did in September? It'd be great if they're playing games that are meaningful in December, but I don't want to see a repeat of what happened last year where this team just fell off a cliff and, because of performance, because of roster construction, because of whatever. I think those are the key things for me.
I think the one thing that I would add to everything you said was to not be lulled back into the 2020 thing. Where we start terrible, and it's easy to do this, by the way. So this isn't a criticism of fans, but you're rebuilding a team. You've got a new coach, new schemes, new players, right? All new players brought in. That this front office likes. All new players in the draft, and if they start off like shit, they're probably going to be shit. Next year they start off like shit. They lose the first 6 games, and then. Then we have that conversation. It's well, they won, 8 of their last 11 or something like that. Don't get too caught up in the momentum. Just remember the fundamentals of what we're watching here. Are they scoring points? Again, are they protecting the quarterback? You know what I mean?
And don't, if that starts up again, it's just PTSD that you have from past years and past regimes.
Yeah. It really sucks. I mean, it's annoying to have to view an NFL team like a peewee team, right? Where it's just well, next year after I'm done coaching them this year, there'll be something. It sucks. But sorry, if you do it now, you'll feel better later, I guess. That's where I was going with that.
I mean, again, a lot of it depends on, the schedule's coming out on Thursday. We're going to know who we're playing and when we're playing them. If we start off with a brutal September, it doesn't matter.
Too. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what improvements we made. We still may end up 0-4. And are you going to feel the same just because it's 0-4 if we play, Dallas and, I don't even know who we're even playing this year. But, if we start off with a hard part of the schedule right away, is that really indicative of how good or bad this team is?
Yeah, really. Obviously not. So,
Mm-hmm.
and also, no matter who week 1 is, it's not going to be indicative of anything because this team is going to be learning on the fly. So,
Mm-hmm.
whether they do good or bad, it's really not
And
going to be.
also, we see how this league is trending that you can't tell anything about anybody in week one.
Yeah, the
I
way
mean,
they've
didn't
changed this season. So, yeah.
last year, week one, Green Bay got their asses kicked?
Atlanta was off to like a 3-0 start.
Exactly. So we have to learn that these teams are treating the first month of the season like extended training camp. You see how they're treating exhibition games. There's one less one to begin with, and they're just not playing their guys anymore, and they're just easing into a season.
Yeah.
Having an extra playoff game and an extra regular season game allows them to do that more. So don't freak out if we go 0-2.
Speaking of the schedule, that is being released Thursday night at 8 p.m. to much fanfare. I don't know why it needs to be a whole TV show, but it is.
Because we're all going to watch it.
Yeah, and what's going to happen is we're going to watch it, and then we're going to do an episode about it. So who am I to criticize? So basically what I'm saying is next episode will be Friday morning. We're going to it's going to be a quick one just about the schedule. Also throughout the week on Twitter and on YouTube, I will be posting quick, very quick, 2-minute breakdowns on each of the draft picks with some film stuff on the side. First time I'm doing that, obviously. Don't know how it's going to go, but I don't know. In the future, maybe I'll do something different with it, but those are already started. Those are you guys are listening to this on Tuesday. There will already be some on Twitter and on YouTube by that time. Mm-hmm. So there you go. In the meantime, follow me on Twitter at @football_grump. Follow him on Twitter at the Cranky Fan. Follow the show at Just Giants Pod, and be sure to subscribe, like this video, etc. on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to your stuff.
Yeah, wherever you get your podcasts and wherever you watch videos from, we're there. And if you give us on Apple, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating and a review. Those really help us. And also on YouTube, smash the subscribe button, say some nice comments. We'd really appreciate that. That would help us out a lot. So,
yes, you guys are the best. Mm-hmm. All right, everyone, we will see you Friday morning to start off your weekend. Go Giants.
Go Giants.